Hello. Hello and welcome. Come say hi in the comments so I can say hi to you. I see that Marilyn is here. Annie is here. What is everybody up to? What happened this week? If you want to share anything that happened this week. I know Marilyn emptied her garden of all the tomatoes. Did anything else happen? Anything else? Hello and welcome. How is everyone doing? Is it raining where you are? Here it is. Started raining around 11 this morning and it hasn't stopped. So it's a blooming cold day here. I am sure you are with all those tomatoes handpicked. You had I think like 7 5-gallon buckets of tomatoes. Yesterday here started cold, and then late afternoon the sunshine came out and we had a beautiful evening here yesterday. But today it was cold. It's starting to get cold. This week when I was bringing my kids to school, I don't know if anyone saw it on Instagram, on my stories. I refused to wear socks. I was a rebel. And then I was cold. I had cold feet, wet feet when I got home because there's like this wet grass when I walk to school with the kids. I have to come to realize that it is sock season, scarf season, pants, coat, and boots. I have to come around and figure this out, and that summer is no longer here. Anyone want to share what's going on? Around that, yeah, it's going to get them to ripen in the house. Yeah, I actually did that this week. I removed, I think it's 50 of my tomato paste plants. I removed all of them. And then yesterday, my husband burnt them because we do have blight, a lot of blight this year. And I just separated them in a couple of bins, the green ones all together. The slightly change of color in a bin. And then another 2 bins with like almost ripe. And those, like, I try not to layer them too much because the weight when they ripen can actually squish them and then make them unusable. So I did that, and I also emptied. That was a hard one for me. Usually I close up my high tunnel and leave all my peppers till like frost kills them. But I removed all my pepper plants, all my peppers, and most of them is either dehydrated, frozen, or in recipes. I still have 10 left that I keep around on the counters so that I can use them in recipes. But peppers is done, and the reason why I did that is my 3 beds are now almost all emptied out, and I'm going to send in a couple of chickens in there or the rabbit to eat everything that's there, fertilize a little bit, and then I have my 1,000-liter on the side of the house that I have to empty soon because when it freezes, I don't want water in it. So I'm gonna water all of the beds to make sure that they're deep watered, and then I'm gonna transplant greens and like anything that is cold hardy. Maybe direct seed a couple of cabbages that are like 45 days. Obviously, I probably will have to cover them, because usually it's 45 days of transplant. That's usually it's like 1 week of like sprouting and then 4 weeks of preparing and then you transplant them. But I'll see if I can get those things work. So that's why everything was removed in the tunnel so I can make place for experience with the colder weather coming. Yeah, well, if I put my rabbits, I have 2 males. They probably would eat everything except the stems of the tomato plants and the pepper plants. So I would just have to remove that. They would eat practically any weed. Their manure is actually coal manure, so if I wanted to plant root vegetables, I could. If I put chickens, I have to be careful because it's hot manure. I probably would have like to put brown material so that they compost all together and like separate it all in the tunnel and only put nothing that grows lower to the ground. So I probably, now that I think of it, I'm probably gonna put the two males rabbit and make sure that they can't accept can't escape the tunnel because I did have a chicken that found its way in my tunnel on the side, so I have to fix that. Yes, that's why I say it's a 45 days, but with like ideal conditions. So obviously, I won't like 20 of them. I might like try 4 seedlings to see if I can get it to work. And if I have red cabbages by December, that would be great. If I don't, well, then I'll know that it doesn't work. Because when a package says 60 days, it's usually, unless it's direct sown, it's usually 65 days or 45 days from transplant in ideal conditions. So that means it has ideal conditions of water, sunlight, and everything a plant needs. I put a few chickens in my greenhouse. I plan to make my cabbage from the garden and make transplant. That's a good idea. It feels weird talking about the colder months and preparing for it and like trying to push out and extend our growing season, and it's going to take a lot of tweaking because like a freeze can actually kill everything if you're not careful. So a high tunnel, during the day the temperature rises in the tunnel. So if it's 5 degrees Celsius outside and it's full sun, you can manage to get maybe 10 degrees extra if everything is closed with a bit of ventilation. You can maybe crack it up at a bit more than that. But if it goes below 0 outside during the night, you still have the same temperatures outside. You just don't have the windshield. So if it's 0 and then -5 with wind chill inside your tunnel, technically it should be closer to 0 than -5. So a high tunnel is like a row cover that you put over your vegetables, but you can actually walk in it. And that's why when it goes lower than 0, I have a tendency of adding at least one more cover on top of my crop. And if it's like really, 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 really cold outside and it goes really lower than -5, I have a tendency, and Annie does this too, to put like 2-3 layers of row covers to make sure that our seedlings or plants are being covered. If it's pepper plants or tomato plants, they will survive, but I'm not sure they will produce anything because of the colder temperature that's outside. So I can't wait to see what I can do with the tunnel this year. I'm not sure if you guys saw that I changed the title of the live. I will be talking about changes that are happening on the homestead. Yes, gardening is an experiment on what plants can grow. That includes season extension. Yes, and season extension does not have to be complicated. Yes, I am blessed with a converted tempo structure, like a car structure that you normally just park your car in it in the winter, and I converted it into a greenhouse high tunnel. and I can actually walk in, and it is a blessing to have a season extend. I am in zone 5, so I can actually grow a lot of things, but being in zone 5. But with the cooler November that we've been having and cooler December, if I am very careful, I can push the tunnel with row covers maybe till mid-December if it doesn't like go below -10 outside Celsius, obviously. I could do a lot of experiments in them. We will not be heating the greenhouse or the high tunnel this year. It would take too much to actually make the modifications, and we have no time to plug the wood burning stove in the tunnel. So sadly, my experiment will go as much as the temperature will give me permission or bless me with a season extent with the high tunnel and the row covers that I have. So changes. Does anyone after everything going on this year, after everything being either harvested or anything going on right now, are you already planning to do changes for next year? Either seedling operation or growing operation, harvesting operation, or anything around your gardening or even your homestead. Are you planning to do something different? I did start writing notes for next year, and I thought I was going to share them with you because I find that my problems and solution can inspire people if they have similar situation going on on their homestead. So every year I sit down and I analyze every crop. So root vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, everything I have grown in big quantities for preserving purposes, not something cute like flowers and stuff like that. I'm talking about stuff that I need to preserve. So the questions I ask myself: did I grow enough? At the end, well, there's some that I don't know the answers, but like tomatoes, did I grow enough? This year, I think I did not. I was blessed to have Annie from Mama Homemade to let me plant some of my leftover tomato plants at her house, and I was able to bring back some tomatoes from her house. And after all of that done, I'm not sure. So when I'm done counting all those green tomatoes that's going to turn red, I have to sit down and I have to see, did I grow enough? Am I happy with the overall season, the outcome, the growing experiences? Overall, does it need change? Or can I do something differently to make my life easier? So every single crop goes through those series of questions, and then I am able to see what I'm going to do for future season. And there's one thing I can tell you, like right from the start, is I don't think I will be growing celery anymore. If I do, it probably will be in smaller quantities, just like to do experiments like every year to see if I can get those celeries that look like in the store. Mine this year lacked water. I don't think they lacked fertilizer because they were in 100% compost, and everything else around them were doing great. So I think most of all is they lacked water. When my season started, they were small, but they taste great. And then at one point something changed, and then the stem became hollow in the middle. And from the reading I was doing, it's because they lacked water, and the season, like from spring to summer, it like went hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. So I don't think they like that. So celery will definitely not be massively grown here until I can figure out what I'm doing wrong. This is something also I wanted to do this year, but the clutch that I wanted were no longer available, and the ones that were like 5 times the price that I wanted to pay. So I feel you with squash because when I do the seedling inside the house, it's always epic failure. This year, because of those little yellow cucumber beetles, I tried to direct sow in little soil blockers. I probably will get the 4-inch soil blocker next year because of that. In 5 days, I think it's like May 1st or May 5th that you're supposed to direct sow squash. I think I'm gonna go in my greenhouse and look at the forecast and use those 4-inch soil blockers, put a squash seedling in it, and have the seedling looking great. And then when all the chance of frost are behind us, or mainly behind us, I'm gonna transplant them outside as soon as I can and find a way to protect them so that when the pest pressure is out. So that means for me, cucumber beetles, squash bugs, and vine borers, the plant is already established in like very long vines and actually started to produce fruits. And then the pest pressure will come out. So at least I will have some fruit. Or another thing I was thinking of doing, and this will be represent an ultimate sacrifice on my part, is to convert my high tunnel next year into a walk-in squash, cucumbers, and melon closed up area. So that means I would have to buy bug netting small enough, like the little holes being small enough to wrap around all the tunnel and have a limited quantity of squash, summer squash and winter squash, cucumbers that can handle being in a closed up air environment that I don't have to manually hand pollinate, and the melons also in smaller quantities. And I would have to manually pollinate, like make sure that there's pollination being done, and have like this box fan pushing and making the air circulate. So I was actually thinking of doing that sacrifice in the tunnel, or if that's not possible, to create a DIY tunnel, 8 feet by 4 feet wide in the back garden, in ground garden, and like close it up for squash, cucumbers, and melons. And maybe if like, I don't know, I have to think something about cold hardy crops that has the like everything from the cabbage family. There's so much pest pressure. I have to figure out how to get them to grow, because if I didn't have pest pressure, I would have beautiful cabbage here. Same thing with squash. So those two are like something that I'm brainstorming. Is it worth it for me to grow them, or I just buy them bulk at the end of the season, like a box of 12 cabbage? And same thing with squash. But I would have to face the reality that I will get like conventional green cabbages and maybe red cabbages sold in bulk. So I would have to come to terms that it won't be those beautiful heirlooms and colorful cabbages. But I am brainstorming for squash and for cabbages. Yeah, not direct sowing, but protecting the squash when small, so bugs weren't. Yeah. Squash bugs this year, since I let some of my vines go in July because I had 4 or 5 squash on them. I am seeing a lot of squash bugs this year. And for the previous year, normally by the end of July, all my squash plants are done. They're out and they're killed and they're burnt to make sure that if there's any leftover eggs, I kill them. And since I have a lot of that like white powdery mildew on my leaves, I burn all those plants as well to make sure that I don't contaminate my compost with any bad stuff. I don't know. I read that celery does not like heat. I could be wrong, but I can't remember where I read that. I'm not sure. I would have to read. Melons were total. This year I had one melon and it was the size of a softball, and it was not nice. It did not taste well. But melon love the heat. So if I would have this rope trellising system that I can have personal size melon, that can withhold the weight of the melon on the vine with a little bit of help, I probably would put them in the tunnel. Yes, I found some varieties of delicata that has bush type plants. They do vine a little bit, but overall they do stay compact. I also found a spaghetti squash. I think it was a spaghetti squash. Acorn has a bush variety. I found it at Baker Creek. I did find, I think, 4 or 5 different squash that are bush type. I did find a pumpkin also. I think that one was at Jardin Les Coumènes. But the thing is, the bush that I find is there's 3 types of squash. There's mochata, pepo, and maxima. In the maxima and mochata, the vine borers don't really like them because they can't bore inside the vine. But the pepo, it's like cocaine for them. They enjoy that. They can bore themselves in, and they would kill a plant within a day. The bush type that we're finding were mainly pepo plants, and I tried to only have zucchini that is that type so that I can actually get winter squash. So I'm more converting into the maxima and the mochata, which is like butternut Canada crook's neck. It's like a butternut longer with a neck. Curry, that's also one. They're like, I try to stay more in those so that the vine borers only kill the zucchini plants that I have. I did read, and I have to talk to Chris at Hickory Croft Farm, that I think it's the crook's neck summer squash, the yellow summer squash, that is more resistant to some of the pest pressure. So I have to talk to him. I have to pick his brain because he chose a specific type of summer squash that is more resistant to the pest pressure. So I have to talk to him to see which one is best so I can implement that next year. I know corn are wind pollinated, but I want to try them in the tunnel next year. We ate our first one ever yesterday, but they missed some maturing. I'm not sure if you watch Simple Living Alaska. They are considered zone 3, so they cannot grow corn outside a tunnel. What they do is they start their seeds inside and transplant seedlings, and then they have a box fan inside their greenhouse, and every single day she goes and she grabs the tassels and shake them. So she kind of manually pollinates them in the tunnel, and she was able to have, I think, 2-3 dozen this year from the plants she had in her tunnel. I did talk about the cold hardy crops. I have a lot of pest pressure with the cold hardy crops, with the spinach, Swiss chard, beets, cabbages. It's not the same pests, but like they're out there, and as soon as they come out, they can massacre a crop within a couple of days. So that means I have 2 options. I can do both. I can sow very early and use row covers for those cold nights and get food faster. And then as soon as the heat comes, remove the row covers and the pest pressure. As soon as I see signs of pest pressure, I will already have some preserve and I can actually focus on something else. And then the second possibility is that I simply wait that all the summer heat is done, and then late July transplant more seedlings, and then have either the high tunnel or row covers help me to have the rest of the cold hardy crops, a second crop at the end of the season. This year, I sowed my cabbages very early, and I had a lot of failure, and I ended up with the suggestion of Marilyn from Little Homestead by the Beach. She told me to utilize my high tunnel and just put my 72 plug trays outside in the tunnel and let them germinate there and just cover them at night. And those seedlings were like the best seedlings I ever had. I was able to successfully transplant 4 to 6 weeks old beautiful seedlings because of that. And sadly, as soon as I transplanted them, I think a month after, pest pressure was like so hard on them, I lost a lot. So instead, I'm still going to do that. I'm going to sow my seeds earlier, and they're going to have almost 4 weeks more outside transplanted. That means also I have to cover them, but at least when the pest pressure's out, the cabbage or the cauliflower or the broccoli, the head will be mostly formed, and I will actually be able to preserve, and I won't have to either manually remove the pest pressure and deal with all the crap of like removing leaves because something ate it. Squash, I still haven't found my system. I did mention it earlier, but something needs to get done. Either create a tunnel or convert my tunnel so that I can have actually at least summer squash. We love zucchini here. Like I cut them, slice them, and I grill them on the barbecue. I do pizzas with them. I shred them. I put them in in muffins or breads, or I can actually sometimes slip in some zucchini in pasta sauce, ratatouille. There's so many things you can do with zucchinis. And I barely have like a dozen to 2 dozen summer squash every year. So I don't have enough. I want more. So I have to figure out what to do with that. I have some crooked neck zucchini. They have no bugs at all. Okay, so I need to focus on that one more next year. I have to remember that. So it's the send me that when you have time, Annie. Send me your seed package with a picture of it. So it is the crook's neck. I watched them, but not lately. Good to know. I can work on it. It's their last video or the one before that. They talk about corn. Potatoes. Potatoes this year. I wasn't able to have Yukon Golds because something happened here in Canada. They were not the place. Mostly all the place that I order potatoes from. All the Yukon Golds were removed from the site. So I mainly have fingerlings here. Fingerlings are small little potatoes, and some of them can actually get to medium size. It's considered big for a fingerling, but they get like medium size compared to, the example, a Yukon Gold. So the reason why I wanted potatoes this year is I wanted to store them for the entire winter till, if I'm lucky, maybe March, and then wait for new potatoes in the spring, in the early summer. At this point, I am not impressed, but I'm not disappointed because I only harvested almost half of them. I know for a fact that the variety fingerling La Ratte, so LA space RATTE, I will no longer grow this one because none of them are big enough so that I can peel them and pressure can them. They're so small. So I will either have to cut them, slice them, blanch them, and freeze them to make sure that I can use them and not lose those potatoes. But none of them are big enough so that I can not be mad at the peeler every single time I peel a potato because they're so small. It's going to take me a lifetime just to peel those. There is one that I am enjoying, which is the French fingerling. Most of them are average, medium size, and some of them are small. Hi, Tracy. So French fingerling is a red skin white potato, and this one, at this point, I enjoy the variety. I also harvested a pink fingerling, and it's on a smaller side. So, but I do enjoy that the skin inside the potato is pink. So if I am to grow like beauty a little bit, I would maybe order a little bag of 2 pounds of that fingerling. It does taste great, but production wise at this point, it's the French fingerling for me. I still have one, two, three and a half rows, almost 4 rows of 15 feet to harvest. And that will decide if I am to be growing potatoes at that scale here. Because it does represent 3 full garden beds. So 30 inches by 15 feet. No, 1, 2, 3, almost 4 garden beds. 30 inches wide by 15 feet deep. So it is taking a lot of space, and I'm supposed to have a result of about 150 to 200 pounds of potatoes with all of my calculation. It could be wrong, but if I can't grow a minimum of 150 pounds to 200 pounds, well, it would be cheaper for me to just go at at the market or the grocery just to buy the potatoes that I want, because price point buying the seed potatoes versus the potatoes I would buy at the grocery store, if I don't have at least 150 pounds, for me it's cheaper on a long period just to go buy a 25-pound bag at the grocery store. Or if I think it's 10-pound bags. I'm not sure that there's 25 bags at the grocery store, but I would free up 3 beds and save money by just getting organic potatoes at the store. Onions. Onions, I am super, super, super happy with onions. I was able to grow a lot of onions from seed this year, and I did get big ones. The only thing I have to say that I have to do different for next year, and I will definitely be growing onions every single year. My varieties that I enjoy is Walla Walla, Elsa Craig. I like the New York Early, and the red one I'm not really in love with it just yet. And there's this yellow cipollini. It's like a flat onion. I really enjoy those varieties, and some of them did get big. The reason why they did not get big is the weeds. With everything I have to do, there's things sometimes that cannot be done, and weeding was one of them this year. So I have to change up how I grow them. Either have a woven ground cover for beets and onions so that I can just transplant them and mainly not do anything and have bigger bulbs, or I have to invest in a tool that I will like standing up remove all the weed pressure. It would be easier for obviously the woven ground cover. I just have to put it and then forget it, and that would be done. I just have to remove the weeds around the bulb, and that's it. That would be like, if I can get my hands on a long roll of woven ground cover, my onions and my beets would definitely get that, and maybe cabbages, so that there's no no weed pressure on those crop. But I am super happy. That's like one of the things that I'm the most like amazed that I was able to grow a lot of like uncommon onions, and I did preserve onion jam with my onions, and onion jam is now part of my I need to do every year. I probably will not do enough. Like every time I use my crock pot, half of a 250 ml jar goes into that. Like I did a pork shoulder the other day, and the only thing I did is I put 2 cups of chicken broth, half a cup of that onion, salt, pepper, a lot of garlic, and I think 1 or 2 tomatoes slice, and I let it cooked for many hours, and like it just tastes amazing. So I have to do loads of onion jam. Let me catch up on comments. Hi Tracy. With the small potatoes, we always keep them and mash them with the skins. Yeah, there is something I saw with little ones. I call them the patates grelots in French. I'm not sure how it's called in English. You boil them, you smash them, and you put a bit of olive oil, salt, pepper, and rosemary, and then you roast them in the oven. And you can do like this dip sauce to dip them inside. It's like delicious. So the kids don't enjoy the skin on mashed potatoes, so can't do that. But the smashed potato, they will eat them. I don't know. Kids sometimes can be like that. Thank you. Yes, I remember you told me you had a very bad start with your onions. I hope next year will be better. I have to say, I did buy 20 pounds of yellow onions, and I might go back and buy another 20 pounds. Because, like I said, that onion jam, I cannot get enough. Like this winter, I'm gonna like make fresh French baguettes, like put butter or cheese and then put that on top. Or I put them in my burgers, or like I put it everywhere. So I might go back for more. But I did grow 25, almost 25 pounds of onions on my own. I have 1, 2, 3. I have 10 rows of onions 15 feet long. And what I did is I sowed 2-3 seeds in one cell, and I transplanted as is. Like I did not separate them, and I transplanted them about like circle around 6 inches apart. So I was able to do 5 rows of 15 feet long, and then 2 garden beds, so 10 rows. Onions. I heard they were very, very big, deep feeders like you have. So what I did is I grew them in a very loose soil. I used my broad fork. That was a game changer to loosen the soil. And I put like a lot of like organic matter. So there was a lot of compost, 100% compost. Usually I do 50% compost, 50% black soil. And my onions were puny, tiny, disgusting. Well, disgusting. That's being harsh, but they were not big. This year they were in 100% compost, loose soil. And I had an onion that was almost the size of a tennis ball. Like it was about this big. It was an Elsa Craig. So without the weed pressure, I probably would have good size. Obviously not the market size like the large onions, but I would have decent size onion. And I do have a slight frustration with onions. There's this, I don't know the name, but there's this fly that puts a little larva. There's a little white worm that bores inside of the onion, and you have to be very, very careful at the end of the season to look at each individual bulb to see if there's this worm that has bored. So it makes like this I don't know how to describe it. It's like this powdery white beige thing on the top of the onion. So when you see that, all of those onions the tops were cut off. I remove all the skin, chop them, and I froze them so that I make sure that that little worm did not bore inside the onion, and I have a snack all winter long on them. So that's the only sad part about onions and leeks in garlic. There's this little fly that has this little larva and bores inside. So I will have to make a decision. Also, if I'm covering my onions, because pest pressure also is a common thing. As soon as a plant is struggling, it will concentrate less on growing bigger bulbs. It's going to like try to protect itself. So I did have the weed pressure, and I did have that little fly that was like not helping. So I might have to cover them next year. or put them in my high tunnel that I convert with those all those um, sides of like a walk-in protecting anti-pest pressure tunnel. I might do that. It might be easier. We'll see. Uh yeah, same things. You had a lot of pest pressure also with your onions. I am waiting till after a frost to harvest my sugar albino beets and carrots. Sadly, I forgot to sow them. My sugar beets. I had 3 packs of MI Gardner sugar beets and I forgot to plant them. Now it's too late. So next year, um, I either will plant sugar beets in the beginning of the season or in July. I don't know. I have to do that next year. Carrots. Since you said carrots, I had a good year of carrot. It's the first year that I used the broad fork. Broad fork, if you don't know what it is, it's similar to the tiller, but it does not destroy the worms and good stuff that's in your soil. You just put the broad fork in the soil and you just lift it a little, and it makes your soil a bit looser, and it just helps to incorporate compost in the lower layers of your soil. And I did that for all my root vegetables, and my carrots this year are looking good. I am in clay soil, so instead of going for those long, long, long carrots, since my I'm still working on my soil, I go for the one that are fatter, like the Parisian ones. So they are wider and they're like conic, maybe this long. There's also the Chantenay red core or Chardonnay red core, something around those lines, which is wider and like shorter. Nante, Nante, also that one is doing well because mainly it's about 8 inches deep, and my soil now is almost um, like my in-ground garden. The first 8 inches are loose, and then after that I still need to work on it. So that's why I don't grow those long, long, long carrots. It's a waste of time because I know my soil will not give me the carrots that I want. So I try to go with the types of carrots that is specifically for those clay soil, and this year I did have a lot of success. Same thing, the only thing that I have to correct is I have to remove the weeds. Um, thinning is not that of an issue. I have a hard time like killing a carrot. So what I do is I let them go, and then I just harvest between 2 carrots. Let's just say the spacing is 2-3 inch of space between carrots, like the one that's in the middle. I let it grow just a little, and those are like my garden snacks. And then instead of taking 55 days to have carrots, it maybe takes 70 days, but I actually did eat the carrot that I thinned. So I know that it's not productive, but I don't have to thin the carrots. And since I have like 8 or 10 rows of carrots, thinning them is like a very time consuming process. So I kind of like drop that so that I can manage my time better on something else. I did read that if you harvest your carrots after the first frost, they taste better. So I have to try that. Frost is coming soon for us. I have to buy soil blockers. Stop being cheap. Yes, soil blockers. I bought mine at West Coast Seeds, so I can. I am an affiliate with West Coast Seeds, so I can send you the link if you want to check them out. But I love soil blocking. I really do, and I find that instead of like keeping all those different size of containers, when I started, I used like yogurt containers. There were different size and tall, different size and like um, width. And then people were giving me containers, so I had like this box of containers that was taking so much space. And converting to a soil blocker, you only store your soil blockers in your trays. I still do have 3.5 pots in 4 inches round ones, but those are like high quality pots that I've purchased used. And those, I keep them because they only take one shelf in my shed, instead of like my entire shelf before with all those mushroom crates and all those different types of um, containers to grow my seedlings in. But I do love the soil blockers, and I do have to spend more time with them to learn how to use them adequately, so they make my life easier. We boil them and put garlic and butter in the mash them. Num 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 num. That sounds delicious. Can I can onion soup? I did find a soup that you can pressure can. That's beef broth and onions. I can send it to you if you want. Just message me so I don't forget. Onion needs to be planted as soon as the ground. Yes. This year I transplanted onions. It was really cold. It was early. Very early. So I'm gonna grow all the onions, and you're gonna grow all the squash. If I need close to 50 pounds of onions, and it could work. It could work. I can maybe. We would have to talk about that. But if I don't succeed growing onions, how are you gonna can all your recipes? We have to talk about that. Broad fork, loosen the earth without harming the ecosystem within it. I want one. Yes, I actually bought mine at. It was a 2-hour drive away from my house. It was what was his name? It's a Quebecer, what's his name? Jean Martin Fortier. It's his design. In Annie, please tell me where our broad fork comes from. I forgot. I know it's his design, but it's another farm that makes it. And you can either order it and go pick it up at the farm, or they actually deliver it. I found they struggle more when I planted them in the cold. I am impatient. I didn't have any. I hope you're talking about onions. I planted my onions when the calendar told me I could, the earliest I could. And I checked the forecast, and there was not a killer frost coming. I planted my carrots into 2 big planters in sandy manure compost. Yes, well, every single root vegetable prefers loose soil. This year, since I have an average of 6 to 8 inches of like loose soil in my in-ground garden, I will add another 2 inches this year at the end of the season, or at the beginning of the other season. So I should have at least everywhere between 6 to 8 inches. And then I'm going to pass the broad fork everywhere in the garden. It is a, you do like your, you do your exercise by doing the broad fork with all the garden beds that I have. I cannot do it in my raised beds because I sink in. I tried doing the broad fork in the raised bed this year. I sink in. The soil is like way too loose. So I actually just use my fingers and I kind of brush the soil in my raised beds. But at one point, I will have to find a way to go in the raised bed and use the broad fork. Hit that. Yes, don't forget to do the thumbs up. Hello, Dave. I am thinking about my peanut harvest. I hope it's going to be a great harvest. You think you have... yes, Fortier. Yes, this is what it is. This is where I got my broad fork. I was supposed to do a video about it, about the broad fork, and then I got that magical, wonderful virus That's driving everyone mad. And then that was I and then everything started to happen so fast after I was recuperating. So I did not do a video about my broad fork. So next year I will be doing like a full video of it, of this broad fork and where I got it, and talk about Atelier Libertan. They are amazing people. They when my husband arrived at the store to pick it up, they gave us a gift with it, and they showed my husband how to use it, and they chit chat. It was a really fun visit. I wish I was able to go and meet this person. It was wonderful from what I understood. Maybe use a soaker hose in rows, but rabbits are eating the tops. Good thing they grow underground. I want to use a broad fork. You're probably talking about your peanuts harvest, correct? The broad fork can actually be used to harvest potatoes and everything underground. You just have to carefully, when you enter it in the soil, carefully enter it so that you don't damage your root crop like the potatoes. But I'm sure you can use a broad fork to harvest your peanuts. Now, where was I? Beets. Well, I did talk about the pest pressure, which is that little, I don't know the name of it in English, but c'est le mineur. It's that little white worm again, but this time instead of boring inside the fruit or the vegetable, it bores inside the leaf. So that goes into spinach, Swiss chard, and beef greens, and certain types of kale. So that little worm is inside the Swiss chard. I can't eat it. Like, I give them to my chickens, but like the fact that the beets are dealing with that, instead of having those big beautiful bulbs, I have like small size bulbs of beets. So that's another thing I have to do. Row covers and roving ground cover will probably be the big investments that I do next year. And if there's space in the budget, or then it's going to be the year after, it's I would love to have a drip system, like a watering automatic drip system that is connected to my 1,000-liter system, because I'm not allowed to have an automatic system connected to the city water. It has to be connected to the rainwater. I do have all the equipment that I need to use the water that I harvest and connect it to a pump and then use it in the garden. All I have to do is just buy the drip tape and then install it. But I am told that it is an investment to be done. So if after all the ground covers are, yes, leaf miners, that's what they are. Leaf miners, they go into mainly in the ones that I just said, the beets, the beet greens, the Swiss chard greens, some types of kale, spinach. Did I see them somewhere else? Anyways, it's mainly those. So definitely investment is like a theme for next year's change. I did get a lot of beets preserved. I'm really happy about that. And I did learn how to pressure can them this year. And I love pressure can beets, especially for cold salads. Carrots. I talked about carrots. There's one vegetable for the life of me I can't grow. Turnips. I can't grow turnips. I sow them very, very early in the spring. And then the greens pop out of the ground, the bulbs start forming, and then I have like these little white worms inside the turnip. They crack, and then the pest pressure, like these black beetles, comes out and they massacre the leaves, and then the turnip like doesn't form a bulb, or there's almost nothing. So I have to figure out if it's worth it, if it's worth the garden space, if it's worth my time, or I just at the end of the season, same thing, buy a big box of turnip at the farmer's market. I would love to grow all my vegetables, but at one point I have to be realistic. I am a one-man show here. So everything I preserve, everything I do is mainly all me. My husband and my kids do help. My husband is infrastructure. So if something needs to be built, changed, adapt, or I need like manpower or muscle power, he is there to assist me. But the rest, I'm mainly on my own. So if it's not worth my time, I might as well invest my time somewhere else so that I can focus more on production. Tomatoes and peppers. Tomatoes, if you don't know or if you haven't figured it out, it's one of my favorite vegetables to grow. I did this year realize that the system I have in place is not what is good for me. If I have like maybe 20 plants, it would work. The string and the clip that I'm using right now, I love it. But for 100 and something plants, it doesn't work. There's too much work to be done, too much pruning to do. Overall, at one point, I get so overwhelmed with everything that I stop pruning them and I stop clipping them and I stop like doing all my systems. So I have to learn. Annie is actually doing this method. It's I'm not sure if this is how it's called, but it's field type trellising. And it seems easier for me. So I have to stop putting my tomato plants in my raised beds and put them like field wise, like in ground, and remove them completely from the raised beds. It is wonderful to have like those cattle panels and those fence, but it does not work. It's not efficient, and I lose a lot of tomatoes to either blight or they have lack of water because they're all crammed up together. So when it rains, the water, when they're little, it's not a problem. But once they're all grown and crammed up and everything, the water doesn't necessarily get to the soil. So I have to change that system completely. It is very sad because I'm realizing my raised bed, they are gorgeous. They are beautiful. They create this wonderful area. And when it's all in full bloom with all those sunflowers and all that green, it's like enchanted. But if I sit down and I'm realistic, I probably could have more out of a market style garden than the raised bed. Like, I was inspired by Roots and Refuge Farm. I loved that garden. It was so wonderful, so magical, but she has so much space, and she was able to space her raised beds 4 feet of distance between each bed. Mine is 24 inches. So I can't pass with a tractor. I can't pass anything else than a 5-gallon bucket. It does not pass in those rows. And I wanted that magical garden, but it's not as efficient as I thought. I should have seen it coming, but now that they're there, I could remove them, but it would be so time consuming to remove them. And so that means this coming season, in the spring, in the fall, winter, and spring, I have to figure out a way to make those garden beds as efficient as possible and also include beauty in it. I did create that area so that there's a lot of beauty, and it is also an intimity fence. The first garden bed is always so super massive and super glorious and super tall. So that means when people are walking by, it does give me a bit of intimacy for my backyard. So I enjoy that part. I just have to figure out a way to make it more efficient, in that the crops that's growing in them are doing like a 10 out of 10 for me, or 8 out of 10 for me, instead of just breaking even, or like 50% of production. I want to go back to buy the garlic planter. You mean at the farm, at the Jardin Liberdad? Do you have a video on that, Mama Homemade? You mean, okay, that's not for me. Okay. Um, Also, another thing about tomatoes, I planted way too much of slicers, way too much of cherry tomatoes. And I have 24 cherry tomatoes, and I think I have 30 slicers around that. If I wanted to keep up without those slicers, I probably would have had to eat like tomato sandwiches for breakfast with an egg. And then tomato sandwich for lunch with a sausage, and then tomato sandwich at dinner with something else. Like I had so much slicers, so that means next year I'm gonna put down that number way down, probably like 12 or 20, closer to 12. Same thing with cherry tomatoes. I will no longer plant 24 plants of cherry tomatoes because I'm mainly the only one with my husband that eats them, and a little bit my daughter. So there are so many cherry tomatoes that are wasted on the plants because I can't keep up with harvest. And then when it rains, they all crack, and then I lost a lot. So sadly, I have to cut down on those, and that means I have to bump up the paste plants that I will be doing. So I'm going to bump up the paste at 100 plants, and then 12 or 20 slicers, and then only 12 cherry, or maybe less. I have figured out the ones that I really enjoy, which is Sun Gold, Sun Chocolat, and there was another one that I enjoyed. I can't remember. Sun Gold, Sun Chocolat. There was a red one. I forgot. Glacier? Anyways, I have to look at my notes. But like I will maybe like grow 1 or 2 new ones every year, or max 4, and then put those number downs and focus more on paste style. I am realizing that Jersey Devil and Amish paste are really awesome for diced tomatoes. They're huge, they're big, and they're like the skin comes off really good. And my Ropreco that I grew this year from Jardin Les Coumènes was awesome. It did really good in my high tunnel. I did not lose that much with blossom and rot. They were watered maybe once or twice a week. And I had like, it was a good overall experience with the Ropreco. So that one is definitely coming back next year. And those bigger paste tomatoes will be like for salsas and diced tomatoes. For peppers, I need a trellising system. I started growing bell peppers, and like I have like 2-3 bell peppers on a plant, and then they fall over and they break. So I have to find a way to trellis them. You will never have to plant cherry tomatoes. Actually, I will, because I'm no longer growing them in my raised beds. So that means I have to transfer them someplace else. And Sun Chocolat and Sun Golds are hybrids. So the plants that will grow from the cherries that drop on the ground and regrow will only be like either or of the parents of the hybrid. But I probably will have a couple of volunteers in my tomato beds for sure. Pathways in my garden, in ground, and my raised bed. So, like I said, my pathways are 24 inches wide in my raised beds, and they are about 18 inches apart in my in-ground garden. I am switching it up if I can, in the spring. I'm going to put wider spacing. I'm hoping to put 24 inches. It's going to be a little bit of work, but like nothing fits with 18 inches. Like I can't even put in like a 5-gallon bucket in the ground so I can collect stuff. So it makes it a bit hard. And when I lean on my knees or I try to pick up something, like my foot always touches the plant behind me. So if I can do that next year, change my pathways to 18 inches. Another thing I have to do is I have to put something on the ground, either rocks or wood shavings or anything that will reduce the grass from growing or weeds growing or anything growing, because I found myself during the season weeding the pathways, which is like all like so time consuming. So I have to find something to clear out the pathways in the in-ground garden. In the raised bed gardens, I have to put something permanent, like a ground cover, and then put some wood chips, so I never have to weed or weed eater, pass the weed eater around there, and like I won't have like knee-high stuff tickling me, thinking it's spiders, because I am terrified of spiders. So that is, I know it seems weird that a gardener is terrified of spiders, but it's a very long story. But if I can control that, it will actually, I will be able to focus on more important things than weeding pathways. And the last thing that I'm going to change is, I keep saying it. I said it, and every time I talk to people, it comes back. I need to find ways to manage my time better. I know it sounds easy to say, it sounds easy to do, but it's not. I need to focus and like have like this mindset change that here, with the land that I have to focus on production first and then beauty. And in production, I'm talking about medicinal herbs, and preserving either by blanching, freezing, canning, or anything else. So I have to focus more on being productive and manage my time better. So that means instead of having like 10 different varieties of beans, that means I will have only one or two. Instead of having like 20 different types of paste tomatoes, I will have like two or three. Two or three being that one of them is for sauce exclusively. So that means I have to figure out within the next couple of years which one will become my only exclusive paste tomato for sauce. I have figured out that there's three types for diced tomatoes, which is Amish paste, Ernie's plum. I have to try it out next year because it's a huge paste tomato, and Jersey Devil. There's a fourth one, Gilberti. It's from M.R. Gardner. Those are like massive paste, and they are indeterminate tomatoes. So I have to figure out those and focus more on being productive. That will mean that I will have bigger harvests. So I'm going to have to invest more time in the harvesting aspect, but when it comes to preserving, I will be preserving more every single harvest that I do. So by doing that, it is going to be time saving. And all those little adjustments that I will be doing, like on my carrots, on my beets, on my onions, and all of that, will help me manage my time better. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a market gardener. I am not an expert. I am a person that decided to change my lifestyle, and I am learning. And learning takes time. This is the conclusion of my 5th gardening season. So I am learning, and I am actually learning also from some of you guys, because sometimes in videos you actually comment, and those comments are very useful for me. I understand very well, not much time management, but well, I find that those two go together. I am fortunate enough that I'm doing this full time. So this is my job. This is instead of going 9 to 5 out of the house working. Hello, Tammy. Instead of going and working, this is my full-time job for me. And bonus, I get to share it on YouTube for you guys. But I'm actually treating this as my job. So when people ask me what do I do for a living, I say that I manage a micro farm, self-sufficient. So this is what I do. So by focusing on production, I am able to grow more food on the small land that I have. If I had an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, 20 acres, maybe my mindset would be a little different. But by being limited on 1/3 of an acre, that includes the house, the front yard, the side yard, the driveway, and the kids' area where they can actually play, the chicken run, and like the shed. And also, I have to figure out where the sun is. Like, I am doing everything I can, so crammed up. So it has to be productivity first. And then by doing that, like Marilyn said, energy level. If you're discouraged by so much weed, your energy level will be like, eh. But if you have just a little bit of like pest pressure, just a little bit of weed pressure, and it only takes an hour per day to deal with that, your energy level mentally will like be better overall. And then you'll have more energy to focus on other projects during the day. That like by I was overwhelmed by all of the weeds, all of the pest pressure, of everything being coming out of the garden all at the same time. Like I had to pick and choose. Like what's more important right now? Like I actually lost my shelling peas this year and my peas. Those two were sacrificed. My cabbages also were sacrificed because there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do in one day. So I had to sadly let go some of the stuff and say, okay, whatever happened happens. And that's what happened. And also another thing, because of everything that happened, my in-ground garden right now is half full. There are some rows right now that I could have put compost on, and I could grow 5 rows of 15 feet of radishes. But I don't have time to go do it because there's so much I have to do right now. So many things are coming out of the garden. Tomatoes, I have to empty out I emptied out the peppers, the tomatoes. So it adds up. And the more positive energy you have throughout your day, the more energy overall you'll have during the season. But if you're overwhelmed by everything that has to be done, and there's a lot of things that are like, and making you like sad or angry or whatever negative emotion, your energy level and motivation level will go like down very fast. But since this is a job for me, I need this to work. So that's why I'm doing it this way. And after friends are sending me new varieties. No, I didn't do that. No, I didn't do that. No. I actually did a seed collection cleanup, and you guys are, I think it was you, Darren, Jack, and Remy, received some of the seeds that I decided I was no longer growing because of that. So there was a lot of like, ooh, this seems fun. I want to try it. So since I'm focusing on production, I am only keeping the ones that one we enjoy eating, and that gives me that production at the end of the season. That's pretty much it. That's a lot of changes. I don't think I have anything else. Oh, no, there is one more thing. And I keep saying it every year. And Annie if she's still here, can actually laugh with me. At the beginning of the season, I journal everything. Like everything I sow, the quantity I sow, how much came out, how much of it was the germination rate. And I kept the journal. And then I stopped. So I did not keep track of the seedlings as soon as they were transplanted. So I have to, at the end of the season, some of the stuff I will have to play the memory game and like try to remember all of it. So I want to be able to document everything during the season also, because it's going to make the end of the season like analysis easier on me. So that's another thing I want to do. Document much more during the high season. I know that it seems unrealistic because of everything I have to do, but it is something I think that would be useful. Does anyone want to ask or say anything? Yeah, well, that's the thing. Life happens, and we stop doing the things we know we should be doing. I started my journal. Yes, that's why I said if you're still here, you understand me. Life happens, and then we forget. I stopped too. I had to look up my old videos. Yeah, well, thank God I have some of my videos, and I also chat with you guys. So sometimes when I try to remember, I kind of pick your brains and see, do you remember what I said about this thing? And la la la. Sometimes it happens that the person remembers, but most of it is still fresh. That's why in October, I sit down and I journal everything that I remember. Like, I know that tomato wise, there's some varieties, they're gone. Peppers, I now mainly know the varieties that I want to grow for production wise. And I'm going to let go of a lot of like the cute varieties. Like, I'm only going to have like maybe a little amount of the varieties. The Sensation yellow pepper from Verde Seed, that's going to be definite. I'm going to buy maybe one or two packages of seeds. I think it's a 20 package of seed because it's a hybrid. The green peppers are big, they're huge, and they become this bright yellow, beautiful color. So that is going to be definite pepper that I grow. The King of the North will also be my red pepper, but I'm trying to find another one that's bigger, that gives me more production overall. Maybe I'll replace the King of the North, but the yellow one, the Sensation, is amazing. And the orange also, I had this was the first year, so I'm going to try it again next year to see if I love it or not. It's Ariane, Arianne. It's a woman's name, but the peppers were big, but the plants were huge, but there was not that much peppers on it. So maybe I did something wrong. Maybe there was too much manure there, so that the manure only concentrated on the leaves instead of the production. I have to figure out what I did wrong, or maybe that's the type of plants. But like, I definitely want to have those big orange peppers, those big yellow ones, and those big red ones. I know that I'm in zone 5, that I'm daydreaming and all of that, but the Sensation did, like, they were big and they were nice. My friend got an application she uses in the garden. I'm gonna ask her, what is this? True. Also, that's another thing. I love that you said that. Talk to other gardeners. Talking right now at the end, well, not now, but like at the end of September, we have to talk with each other and say, okay, this is what I struggle with. Okay, this is what I struggle with. And then by talking to other people, you kind of see the same patterns going on. And you're like, oh, you did that. That worked for you. That did not work for me. And then you have this kind of conversation. And at the end of the day, you kind of get inspired by someone else's garden, and you get ideas that you never had before because you had a chit chat with another gardener. Slugs, definitely. This year, I did not understand what was going on with my peppers, and it's only when I brought the last harvest in, I brought like a 23-liter jar inside of the house. There were so many slugs inside the peppers. I didn't understand all year long why I did not have peppers. Now I know. Next year, I'm gonna see if the beer technique works. And Mallory from Quebec Homestead also had a video about slugs and the way that she dealt with them. So I have to go back and see what she did. She had slugs on her carrots. Because this year peppers were like, eh. Compared to last year, I maybe had like 50%, 60% of what I had from last year. So I'm not complaining. I do have a lot in my freezers and in my recipes, and I probably will only have to buy 1 box of red peppers because I want to do roasted peppers pressure can. So, and it's because we love roasted pepper dips in hummus. and I prefer doing the roasted peppers on my own. Does anyone else want to add something? It is soon the time that I have to go put my kids, my little monsters, or my dinosaurs. Today they were more like dinosaurs. Now I also have to be better to keep what is in the freezers. Do you know if there is a home thing with a bark? I don't know, but if there is, you have to share. That is the only area of my house I do not have an inventory of. Mainly because I have a pork that a friend raised, and I just put it in my freezer, and I order what I want, so I know the cuts that I have. Mainly when I put it in the freezers, I know a little bit. Like I know this year I have 33 packages of hamburger meat, certain amount of cube, but I have to inventorize this year. This is something I need to do because it helps me with my meal prepping and manage waste. Because like I don't want to go like at the end of the season next year, oh, I had this in my freezer, it's been there for 2 years, like I have to pass it. But now since I'm pressure canning, if I find a older piece of meat, I can pressure can it. But before I wouldn't know what to do with it. I have to use the tractor bucket to dig up the strawberries, taking over my garden. We'll have to add topsoil manure mix over the clay with wood chips on top. I have to figure out where to put them. Strawberries, Annie used up old tires, and she just planted them in it. I think she planted 2-3 strawberry plants in the tires, if that's what you're asking. Yeah, it would be awesome. Homemade barcodes for the freezer. It would be nice. Especially now that my 3 freezers are full. I have a stand-up freezer. I have a chest freezer that's like almost commercial size. And I also have like a mini chest freezer that's like 24 inches or 22 inches by 20. It's like only for my hamburger meat, cube meat, and Instant Pot style meat. I only put those. And like the doors of each freezers are like it's almost filled to the top, the 3 of them. The stand-up one, I have 1 shelf, but now I'm using it to stuff in the tomatoes, because after processing 150 pounds of tomatoes 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, I'm kind of done for a little while. So now when they are red, I remove the top, slice them in 2, put them in the freezer, and then once all of my tomatoes have changed color, I'm going to go and do another canning session, because I do have a lot of tomato sauce and diced tomato already, and it will give me time to use up some of my jars instead of buying them, and then I have free jars later on in the season, because I do have to empty a bit of the freezers and pressure can some of the meat. So the jars I was planning to use for the sauce will be now used for the meat. So I will have like those express meals during the winter. We love now taco meat, cube as is, or chipotle taco cube meat. And what's another one we enjoy? Meatballs, flavored meatballs. We enjoy that as well. So I might like have like those express meals done, and then once the jars are starting to be empty and I have enough, I will probably can like in end of November or November all of those tomatoes. And I did also break my tomato sauce machine. I have to order parts, so that's another reason why they are in the freezer. 5 by tires. Oh, my bad. Do you have a generator in case the power? Yes, we bought a generator. And on my husband truck, there is a generator. So we have two. So if ever the power goes out, I am probably able to power two. So that means I will have to thaw out. If ever it does happen to me, more than 24 hours, I probably have to thaw out meat in pressure can it. And I have a gas stove, so if there, I can still pressure can with my stove, or if need be, I can use the propane burner outside. But I am ready for that because 2 years ago, hydro would like break out anytime for a period of a couple of hours to a couple of days. So I was actually incubating eggs. I had two incubators, two 24 incubator eggs full, and we lost power. And my husband was like, "Uh-oh, okay, so we can't do that." So we ended up buying a used one. And when he's home, I have an access to a second one. But if it's just a power outage of like a couple of hours, I just leave all my freezers as is. I don't touch anything, and it should be good. But if it's more than 5, 6, 10 hours, I would start to get worried. But like, I don't want to play the lottery, especially with freezers. So we did get one. And we also have the option of the one on this truck. That's something that you need to get prepared. If you have freezer full of food, there's two things I found that are useful. The generator, and I found a device, I'm testing it right now. It's devices that you put in your fridge, in your freezers. If it goes below a certain temperature, there's an alert on my phone. Because I had my little chest freezer, 22 inch by 22 inch. The kids unplugged it, and all my cauliflower, rhubarb, I had some winter squash. I had a lot of fruits and vegetables in there. And we found it maybe a week or two after the kids unplug it. I won't tell you how bad it smelled, but I did lose all of those vegetables and all those fruits. So what we did is we invested in, it's like a little sensor. As soon as it reaches a certain type, like it goes below the setting, we have an alert. So it's an investment to have freezers that full. So you don't want to lose your investment. So those sensors is actually going to help us maintain peace of mind. Obviously, if we lose power and it's minus 20 degrees Celsius outside, I'm just going to take the freezers and bring them outside. Worst case scenario, if I don't have access to a generator. But right now, we need it. Right. Most freezers are good without power. Yeah, about 10 to 12 hours. Past 12 hours, I'm going to start like going, I have to do something like now. Yeah, I wouldn't want now, after getting my pork and how much I paid for it. No, I choose to be prepared. We always have gas here. We always have the generator close by. So I wouldn't want to risk it. Did someone want to add something else? Because I do have to go. It is my cue. It's almost 7:30. Soon I will have an office and maybe change the schedule of my life so I can chit chat longer with you guys. But until my office is ready, it has to be like this. I also want to thank you for popping in, chit chatting with me, sharing your gardening experience and your knowledge. I wish you have a fantastic week. In that, if you're experiencing frost, that you all tucked in, you have wood, or you have heating in your house. Searching for, I'll keep you posted. Yes, but that means you have to put barcodes on each. So, but it is definitely an idea. Night, everyone. Good night. Thanks. So thanks again for popping in. Have a wonderful week. And I wish you have a blessed week. Take care. Bye.